Hello everybody and welcome back to the Europa Universalis tutorial series. This is part 3. In the last episode we talked a little bit about how the various administrative, diplomatic, and military powers work and how your king directly influences the technological and, I guess, infrastructural future of your kingdom. Of course, the better your king is, the higher these values will be, and the shittier he is, the lower the values will be, in brief. So, in this episode, we are going to go to war with Granada, with the Emirate of Granada, and take out all of their territory. But first, as you guys remember from the previous episode, we are laying a claim on their province of Granada, which I guess is how you say Granada in Arabic, for example. And basically, before I get into it too far, you only need one claim on one province of a country to declare war on them. That is all you need. But it helps, as you guys will see in this episode, when I lay claim to multiple territories. Later on within the war itself, it helps if you have claims on multiple territories, as this allows for an easier acquisition into your realm. So, as you guys remember from the last episode, if we press our trusty key of Y, which goes to this diplomatic map mode, we've allied Portugal, which is great, actually, because this means that whenever we declare war on somebody, or somebody declares war on us, our ally Portugal will more than likely step in and join in on the fighting. So that's great. So while we are waiting to fabricate a claim on Granada, let's go ahead and fabricate a claim as well on Navarre. That would be nice, right? Yes, it would be nice. But actually, I might actually want to show you guys how to peacefully vassalize the country instead of having to go to war with them. So we're actually going to cover that as well. So first of all, remember, we need to increase the relationship of any, I guess, foreign entity for them to like us and ally us and all of that great stuff. So for this little province of Navarre, this little, I guess, territory in modern-day Spain on the border of the Pyrenees between France and Spain, lies this little province. We are going to annex this directly into our empire without declaring war on it, and I'll show you guys exactly how we do this. We, of course, offer them vassalization, but we must have a military alliance, a relation of plus 190, and they must be at peace. So what we're going to do immediately is we are going to... one second. We are going to proclaim guarantee, as this will basically improve the relationship with us, because this means that we are guaranteeing their freedom, basically. Let's say that England or France declares war on Navarre. We will come into a war against the foreign power to help out our little dependent nation over here. So what we're doing is, notice how we have a free diplomat, but we can't, everything is grayed out, or rather it was. Our diplomat requires time between actions, as he is being ferried back and forth between your capital, which for us is Madrid, and the province in which he is going. Now, this time will actually increase, somewhat realistically, I might add, to say, like, let's say that I am trying to ally Muscovy, which of course becomes Russia in most of their games. The diplomat would take, let's say, closer to a few months to travel back to Madrid from traveling so far and land into Europe. So because Navarre is so close by, it doesn't take very long at all to get the message across. So now that we have proclaimed the guarantee of Navarre, we are going to go ahead and work on royal marrying them. So it only takes 3 days for a diplomat to reach Navarre. Very, very fast. But it takes about a month between actions for us to send out our diplomat again. I guess he needs time to recuperate. So we have royal ties with Navarre. Our relations are much better now. But now we can go ahead and offer them an alliance. Of course, they will accept because we are a massive country. They are just on our periphery. And we have a lot more manpower to protect them, as they can only field 5,000 units, and we can field 23,000, at least as of our current approximation. So now that's taken care of, we're going to go ahead and improve our relationship with them as well. And there are other ways to improve relationship, like you can offer them military access to your lands. You can kind of bribe them with money. We'll get into all of this later, but as of right now, we don't really care. What we're going to do is we are going to check our military parameters, as this episode is going to be focusing on the military point of this game. So let's actually move our regiment over here to Cadiz. It's a bit strategic. I'll tell you why here in a minute. But we're going to go over here to the military, I guess, tab. You can access this tab by pressing the shortcut of 0 by default. And this tab is great because it shows you what leaders are currently leading your country, or rather your armies. We have a General Alvaro de Luna, who is relatively good. Just like as I mentioned in the previous episode, that kings are rated on a scale of 0 to 6, 0 being shitty, 6 being amazing. So too are generals. And our general is actually pretty decent. He's got a rating of 2 for fire, 2 for shock, 3 for maneuver, and 0 for siege. And that's pretty good in the early game. And these indicators, again, scale up and down just like the kings and queens do of countries. You do have an indicator of 0, basically meaning the shittiest, which, as you guys can see, he's very bad at sieging provinces. And then you have fire, which is basically how good their units do in combat. You have shock, which means basically, these are all indicators I'll get into in combat, basically. But maneuver means how fast your general is. If he's got a maneuver of 5 or 6, he's like Usain Bolt. He's sprinting across the plains. He's going really fast. It's nice to have a high maneuver value, as this also reduces the amount of attrition you gain from being in I guess, friendly territory. So now that that's being said, I'm going to press 0 to open up. Oops. I must have misclicked over here, as I thought that the military screen, the shortcut is 0. Okay, well, I must have misclicked. Anyways, you go to the military screen over here. It shows that we have a force limit of 29, which means that we can reliably maintain 29,000 units without suffering penalties. Of course, because we are only maintaining 23,000, we are well below our force limit, which is the term that we employ when we are referring to the amount of men that our army can withhold and I guess keep in a kind of like the reserve. So this also applies to naval units as well. We do have a navy of 18,000 ships, or maybe just 1,800 ships. I don't really think that these go into 18,000s. They don't scale just as much as the others do. So with that being said, all the rest of this we will get into. We will talk about more here in a second. Of course, we also do have forts as well, but these, again, we will get into in just a minute. And I misspoke previously. Madrid is not our capital. Toledo is our capital. Madrid will become our capital later on in the game. But by default, forts will appear in both your capital and perhaps any other strategic area in your empire. And I'll talk more about the forts once we declare war on Granada. But for the time being, all you need to know is that forts are nice. You can use them to block off the movement of your enemy when you're at war. And likewise, your enemy can employ forts to kind of keep your men back while they muster reinforcements. So because, again, as we can see with our force limit over here, we have 23,000 men out of 29,000 men that we can sustain. We are going to recruit more men, which is a good idea. Of course, Cadiz, the province we are currently in, has a supply limit of 25, which means it can only support 25,000 men. So we are going to recruit the other 7 or 6 men over here in Murcia. We are going to recruit, let's see, we're going to recruit 5 Latin medieval infantry with 2 Latin knights. Now you guys will see how I'm recruiting units. You just click on a province, you go to recruit regiment, and you click on them. Now, of note, units do not recruit immediately. It takes quite a bit of time, actually, in some cases, judging on modifiers such as the infrastructure and buildings that you have in these provinces. You can see over here in the right part of our screen how long it takes for each of these provinces to make a unit. Of course, depending on the unit that you make, depends on the time. So, for example, to muster up 1,000 infantry is much quicker than saying mustering 1,000 units of horsemen. So let's go ahead and unpause the game, and you'll notice how each month, of course, we are gaining money, and we are gaining manpower. We are gaining our claims are going through, which is great. And from time to time, you will have events like this one that pop up randomly in the game. Of course, these are more or less random, but there are certain factors that you can, I guess, play to your favor to exploit these for the best. So because we are rivaled, for example, with Aragon, to remind my viewers, you go to the diplomacy screen and you go to click on view your country. You'll see that we are allied, or rather rivaled with Aragon, and because we are rivals with them, from time to time we will get amazing kind of events like this, border tensions. So tensions along our border with Aragon have given us a claim in the province of Teruel. So that's great. So if we click on Y, for example, right now, you will see that we have stripes on this province, which means that we can declare war now on Aragon for basically, well, not for no reason, but because we do have a claim on Teruel, we can declare war on them without worry, because we do have a valid casus belli on them. So that's great. We will get into claims and cores here in a minute. But basically, I could declare war on Aragon if I wanted to. I'm not going to, however, because Castile and Aragon, later on in the game, as I mentioned in episode 1, unite under the same dynasty 9 times out of 10. So really, to conquer Aragon right now, it would just be a waste of time. It would be a waste of men, it'd be a waste of lives, and above all else, it'd be a waste of administrative power, which would be required to core the provinces. So we're not going to do that. We're going to completely ignore that for the time being. We're going to go ahead and again, unpause. And as you guys can see, our units are now starting to show up after we've mustered them. Each in one of these provinces. Of course, you could do this, where it's like you recruit like a shitload of units in each province, or in one province, but this will take a lot longer for your army to be mustered, as one province can only recruit one specific type of unit at a time. So it's nice to recruit units kind of around a certain radius, like what I'm doing currently. And then once they actually pop up, you can drag a square by left click, holding down your left button, your left mouse button, and selecting all 3 of them. And to merge them together, all you have to do is click on one province, which forces a move order. And now that they are all in Murcia, you can press the merge selected units button, or more simply, you can press G to merge them together. Now we have 3,000 units of infantry. So we're going to unpause the game and kind of wait for all of our units to be in a deployable period over here. So we do have a claim on Granada. We do have a valid casus belli against them, which is fantastic. We are going to, again, fabricate another claim because our truce still lasts for 2 more years. So we might as well get as many claims on their provinces as possible. Again, to have a claim on their province means that once we take the province, it'll be much cheaper for us to initiate a core, which will always cost administrative power. And because administrative power is also used for upgrading your government and bureaucracy, you want to very sparingly spend this, unit, or value, I should say, this power, right? You want to sparingly spend it. And if you go all willy-nilly, conquering the world and trying to core the territories, you're going to be incredibly behind on technology for your bureaucracy, so I don't recommend it. So again, we're just unpausing the game and kind of letting it kind of play out while we wait for our claims to be instated on Granada, and we wait for our truce to wear off. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that because we are Spain, we start off with a relatively large, excuse me, 2 relatively large navies. We're going to go ahead and merge the navies. You can merge them just like you do with units by selecting both of them and pressing G. And navies are also broken down into separate units. I'm not going to really get into it in this episode, but basically there's heavy ships, which are really good at combat. There are light ships, which are good at trade. There are galleys, which are good at combat within a inland sea, which is to say the Caribbean, the Black Sea, or the Baltic Sea. I'm not really sure if there are any others in the map. Perhaps there are. The Aegean Sea, for example, or the Adriatic is as well. So galleys are very, very important for combat within the Mediterranean and within any other inland sea. But outside of that, like in the ocean, for example, they are useless. And the last but not the least, we have transport ships, which are used to actually move our men around. So to make a powerful navy, you're going to want to have more light ships and more heavy ships with some transport ships to transport your men. And of course, if you are a predominantly Mediterranean power like Naples or the Ottomans, you're going to be using more galleys and less heavy ships and light ships. So again, I'm going to get into trade on the next episode, but for the time being, all you have to know is you're going to select all of them, you're going to hit the Protect Trade button, and you're going to send it into our node, which is Sevilla. It's going to increase our trade power, which is thus going to increase our income. It's better than having them rot away at the port doing nothing. We like to give our men a job because unemployment really sucks. So again, I'll get into exactly how trade works in the future. But for now, we're just protecting trade. So there's another event that happened. Not all these events are good. As you can see, this one's pretty shitty. We can gain 10 prestige and lose 1 stability, or we can lose 55 ducats. And 9 times out of 10, I will select the ducats to take a hit to our income, or rather our treasury. It is imperative that we increase our stability, as anything that is less than 0 is very, very bad. So if we were to take the hit to our stability, we'd be at -1, and we'd already start to probably get some rebels in some of our peripheral provinces. Of course, the provinces that are, for example, not Castilian, which is our primary culture, for example, provinces that are Andalusian might start rising up against us. So we're going to offer military access to Portugal. They are our ally, of course, so we don't mind. Again, another thing that I forgot to mention is that you can select missions periodically throughout the game. These don't really normally have very much of a bonus, I guess you could say, to the outcome of your game, but they're kind of like cool little things that give you little small little bonuses. Like, so for example, if we were to improve our prestige to at least 50, we'll get 1 stability, which is actually a lot harder than you think, because to improve prestige, you have to declare wars, you have to win battles, and basically everything but what we are currently doing. We can solidify our papal relations, which means that we improve relations with the papal state, which is, I guess, the leading Catholic faction in the game at the start of the game. Of course, this is where the Pope resides. So to have good papal relations is a good thing for Catholic nations. I will get into that in the next episode. Or not the next episode, but a following episode that gets into religion. Or we can select to finish the Reconquista, which means that we have to take all of the Grenadian territory. So we're going to select the finish the Reconquista button. And that's a very good thing. This will actually immediately give us a core, I believe. No, a claim on every single of these provinces. So rather than having to fabricate a claim, it's already done. By accepting some missions will just give you claims on certain provinces, which you can then use to willy-nilly just declare war on them. So we're waiting on the truce between us and Granada. We do have a free diplomat, which means that we can use him to fabricate more claims. For now, I will fabricate claims, let's say, on Portugal, as we will be declaring war on them in the future to take their territories. That's always nice. So again, we are going to wait until our truce with Granada is expired. It will expire in 1448. So we are just going to fast forward quite a bit here as we kind of let our ships protect our trade, as our men are just lying in wait. Of course, we do have a General Alvaro de Luna with our 23,000 regiment of men over here, but our 7,000 units of men over here are led by no leader. So we can go ahead and set our king as our ruler, or even better yet, our heir, as he's incredibly terrible. So if you set your king or your heir to the throne as a general, generally they will die much faster. Just by setting them to arms, they will die much faster. If you have them leading an army, they'll die even faster. And if you have them leading an army into battle, they will usually die. So, not usually, but if they're like really terrible at it, and if they incur a lot of damage with their army, like for example, if they lose a battle, they are more likely to be captured or killed. So if you have a terrible ruler like we do, in Spain, or rather in Castile currently, King Juan, or even worse, our heir of Enrique, it's important to set them as the general of an army, so you could lead them into battle, where they will more than likely kill themselves, which is a good thing. So again, we have another free diplomat. We're going to go ahead and continue to fabricate claims on Portugal, which is currently our ally, and because we have 200... I guess relations with Portugal, it's the cap. You have negative 200 and 200 is, I guess, the continuum between in our relations. 200 is, of course, the highest. So because we already have a very, very high relationship with Portugal, we can go ahead and send our diplomat elsewhere. I'm going to opt for an alliance with Austria, as they are very powerful. They are the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire at the start of the game. I will get into what that means here in a minute. But more importantly, I'm trying to, in the short time I have left, declare war on Morocco. Of course, our truce lasts until February 1448, which means that at the end of this month we can declare war. So let's go ahead and preemptively send back our man, who is currently in Austria, back over to Toledo, our capital, to prepare for war. So before we declare war, you guys will more than likely notice that there are certain provinces that contain forts, right? So, for example, Granada has 1 unit of fort, which is a castle in their capital, and they have no other forts in their territory. We only have 2, one outside Toledo, one outside of Castilla la Vieja, okay? So basically, each fort is going to be, the choke point in which we have to capture if we are to take any territories that are adjacent to it. So, for example, for us to take the province of Maria and Jabal Tariq, we need to take the capital of Granada, which is where the fort is located. So this will make more sense once we declare war on them. which will be right now. Our truce with Granada has ended. We are going to declare war on them. So again, by pressing Y, you can see that we have claims on all of their territory. These are the yellow stripes here. And we are going to click on them. Go back to the political map mode. Of course, when you press W, this is kind of like the default map mode. It's where it shows where the countries are. Each country, of course, has their own color. It's normally how I play in the game. Of course, you could also do terrain map mode. This shows you kind of like where the forests are, where the winter is the strongest, where the deserts are, where the mountains are, the rivers are, all that stuff. I'm playing with a mod that kind of combines the political map mode to terrain map mode. So for you guys, political map mode without mods, it's just going to be kind of a color without all of this embellishment. So anyways, we are going to left click on Granada, select diplomacy, and select declare war. Now they are allied with Tunis, which is not a problem. As we see, Tunis is a relatively powerful country, but they are across the ocean. They're in North Africa. So for them to send men into battle to help out Granada, they will have to send men past the Rock of Gibraltar, the Strait of Gibraltar. And because we have naval supremacy, that is simply not going to happen. So again, let's go ahead and declare war. We are going to set one of these provinces as the war goal, which basically means that once we take this province, we begin to increase our legitimacy in capturing it at the peace table. So select always, when you're declaring war on a country, select always the province that you are about to take first, or the most important province. In this case, it will be their capital of Granada. So you will see that they will call in Tunis, but we can call in our own allies. Of course, Portugal will not answer the call to arms because they're fighting another war. That's fine, but our ally Navarre will. We will left-click this to call them into war. If you left-click it again, you will see that they will not be called into the war, but we want them to be called into the war. Let's go ahead and declare war. So we are currently at war with Granada, and this is actually an interesting thing because our navy that is protecting our trade was actually already in a naval, I guess, sea lane that was occupied by a I guess an armada of several Moroccan, or rather Granadan units over here. They have 5 light ships versus our 3 heavy ships, 5 light ships, and 10 transports. So we're going to win, obviously. It's a numbers game, above all, in Europa Universalis. So now that we are at war, simply left-click, or rather hover over the units that you wish to use to attack. In this case, our 23,000 men that are led by a general. Let's go ahead and use our ruler as a general so we can kill him and our heir that much quicker. So we are going to attack the capital of Granada, which has a fort symbol next to it, as you can see right here. It's a bit hard to see with the unit stationed next to it, but you guys can see it just a little bit over here, right next to their 6,000 men. They have a fort unit. So we'll also be left-clicking in this unit of 7,000 men that's led by our heir, and right-clicking the adjacent province of Maria. So let's go ahead and unpause, and I'll show you exactly how combat plays out. So again, over here at this naval battle, we are each day out of the month, there are several roles that are, if you guys have played Risk, for example, this might be immediately familiar to you. Roles are based off of the skill of your leader in the battle, on other factors such as how advanced your units are compared to theirs. But before we get into that, I'm attacking from Cadiz into Granada. Now, you will notice that when I hover over Granada, I am attacking into a mountain, which gives them a very, very heavy defensive bonus, meaning that if I were to attack with 6,000 men and they had 6,000 men to defend, 9 times out of 10 they will win because their units are stationed in mountains defensively. Going up mountain passes is incredibly difficult in real life, and this is reflected in game as incurring a very massive penalty for us attacking them because they are in a mountainous terrain. And also, we are going to incur a river crossing malus because we are going to be crossing over river. So by and large, I would not ever recommend for you guys to attack over a river into a mountain. But in this case, we are outnumbering them more than 4 to 1. So it's going to be a very, very easy battle. As we can see over here, we are suffering a -2 due to the fact that they are defending a mountain, and we are accepting a -1 due to the fact that we are crossing a river. So much like the naval battles, the military, or rather the warfare in this game, is dictated by unit composition, not only, but more so by the roles of our both our dice, our fire, and our shock. So by pressing the space bar again, you'll see that each kind of turn, well, we've won the Battle of the Strait of Gibraltar. That was no surprise at all. We had a much bigger navy. But you'll see that over here, we are currently winning with our morale. Basically, you win a battle when the enemy's morale is reduced to 0, meaning that their morale is shot down to the very bottom. Battles are not fought to the death, contrary to what you might believe in this game. But even if we can reduce their morale to 0 and they still have a very big standing army, they have lost the battle, thus they have been kicked out of the province. So as you guys can see, we are suffering some pretty bad penalties, but by and large, because we have a much bigger army, we are very easily able to overcome these penalties, and we have won the battle. Because they still have an army that is heading towards Jabal Tabrik, we are going to split in half our army by clicking on this button over here. The shortcut is S, so let's go ahead and click on S. It splits our army. We are going to go ahead and pursue them into Jabal Tabrik, whilst leaving a unit on Garanta to take out the province. So you'll see here in a minute that we are about to take it out. And now notice over here that we have already taken on Maria. Maria did not have the protection of a fort. Of course, in the adjacent province of Garanta, they do have a fort, so it will take much longer for us to capture the province. But because this province did not have a fort, we were able to capture it in just a few months. So it is now under the occupation of our government. But this does not mean, however, that we are in control of the province and we can now administer it. We have to make peace with Granada before we capture and annex their territory. It is not a game like Civilization for when you take out a city, it is now part of your empire. It does not work like that in Europa Universalis. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm going to go ahead and end it now. Stay tuned for the next episode where we defeat Granada in battle and thus annex them into our patrimony. I'll explain a little bit about how coring foreign territory works, and a little bit more about how the vassal mechanic works, as we are able to also offer vassalization to our ally of Navarre. So stay tuned for the next episode where we finish up the war and we work with the vassalization mechanics and our government mechanics of trying to core all of this conquered territory. So again, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this part of the series. Stay tuned for the next part. It will be out very, very shortly. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys on the next installation of the series.